Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. The spirit of love, the spirit that I call God, has a vision for all humankind to live in peace, be prosperous, and joyous. I was given that message to share with the human race. I didn't know up front exactly what that message was. I had to be trained. And I went through some things. And as I expressed myself as positive in those things as I could, they became educators to me. The first education, ladies and gentlemen, is when I got out of school. I went to Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi, or Alcorn, Mississippi now. I think they changed the city. And I majored in social science. I really wanted to be a movie star. But in order for me to go to college, I had to get a scholarship. And the schools that I tried to get a scholarship in that offered a degree in theater, well, I didn't get in that. Not that I even had a chance to audition or anything like that. But I did get a musical scholarship to Alcorn. So I went to Alcorn and I majored in social science. And I was wondering why I chose that field. And as the years were passing, I recognized that what human beings, how I felt around human beings, how I felt so good about human beings, how their pains were my pains and their joys were my joys. And then I had thought about what was in my heart for the human race. And when I graduated from Alcorn, I hadn't given too much thought to continuing my education, because as I looked at it, the things that I saw for America, the things that I saw for the human race, I didn't see it being exercised or practiced anywhere, and never heard of it being practiced anywhere. Heard of it talked about, perhaps, but that's about as far as it got. And so I thought, if indeed the way to achieve this, the message must be out in the world. So I went on out into the world and started working for the Veterans Administration in Chicago. And part of the job responsibility took me out in the community of Chicago, where veterans had returned or had survivors from the Vietnam era. And being involved out there in the community, I got a chance to see some of the great hardships of city urban life, not just by watching Good Times on television, but I was in the midst of it. And for some strange reason, it affected me in a way that it seemed that these things should change. And I, all my life up to that point, had not seen any changes. I've heard people talk about changes, but it was all talk. And so I decided that I would take on this responsibility. Now, I could have been being led by a spirit. Of course I was. It was that spirit that got me to this point. And so I decided to leave the Veterans Administration. I had learned through my short life experience that those who got don't usually care about those who don't have. And their contributions and donations that they give for charitable organizations, they expect to get credit for that when they file their taxes. So I knew that poverty and all the stuff existed because people who had a quarter didn't care about a thing about the one who had nothing. And so but I didn't know exactly what my approach was. However, by quitting the Veterans Administration and needing some money, I started washing storefront windows. And my lovely, wonderful wife at that time had seen me as a guy who was going to be very progressive, and that was the guy she fell in love with. This new guy, having compassion for everybody, just didn't make sense to her. And so she saw me as a stranger that she wanted nothing to do with. It kind of broke my heart, but I had to live with it. And so they had this hostage crisis in Iran. And so the news media picked it up as though it was going to be a conflict. And I saw this as an opportunity, though I had resisted the draft because I was in school, and coming out of school I wasn't going. But now I saw it as an opportunity to go and volunteer to get in the Navy and to be over in the Persian Gulf area, So if something happened, perhaps I could get killed. Why did I want to get killed? Because I wanted the lady that divorced me to know that I really cared about her. My mission had nothing to do with a dislike for her, but a respect for that spirit. And so since I had to lose her, I wanted to give her a gift that I think it was $20,000 or something that they might at that time that they would give your survivor if you were killed. But it went over and didn't get killed. But what I did learn out of that, ladies and gentlemen, that standing before witnesses and speaking before the spiritual God, making promises, didn't mean anything. Oh, I don't care how sick one get, how poor one get, we will always be together, just nothing but words. And so I was blessed anyway, because I got a chance to see parts of the world that I never would have seen. I got a chance to see poverty outside the United States that made our poverty look like rich people. It was sickening. But I got a chance to know that what happens in America, the poverty happens in Philippines, it happens in Japan, it happens everywhere. India, you name it, Africa. And so I constantly saw these as learning opportunities. When I came back to America, my movement was in the same direction. However, rather than going back to Illinois, I went back to Mississippi. And when I went, some people asked me to run for mayor. So I started pursuing it, and I wanted to go back and hold a meeting at one of the churches that I grew up in, a Methodist church, and the lady who was the overseer, I went to speak to her about it. She told me to go somewhere and sit down and leave these folks alone. They're trying to start some stuff. She was an older lady, so she was trying to keep a little peace. I mean, nope, I didn't threaten peace, but she thought black people trying to run for public office just didn't make sense. She was an old lady. And so that didn't stop me. I got involved with some other people who were interested. And then I found that one of the local businessmen, black man, was upset that some members of the community had come to me rather than him, who had a business and had been there, never left the city or anything. And so I saw this as being a chance to just leave it alone. I'm not for turmoil. But I did fall in love with another girl, because I never wanted to be alone, and she was probably the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. And that's my current wife. Now, I come to Minnesota. I thought Minnesota men's supply was really inadequate when they started talking about changes. But there was something that had started while I was still in the Navy. As I found out from that marriage vow, I found out something about that vow with the government in service, in the military service. I saw it as almost being evil. When I went into the service, I was about 27 years old. There were young men coming in, 19, 20, 18, 21. And you never knew what their background had been, but when they came in, they were cursed out, treated like nothing. You know, they cut their hair off. Everybody's hair, mine was cut off and everything. You have to run around. But the thing that was so, I thought, hurt so, was that they got cursed out. And every time a superior or an officer or a training person talked, they were just cursing, cursing, cursing. And I'm thinking some of these kids might have come from wholesome homes where they never heard any stuff like this, but they came out here because they were trying to continue their education, and they saw this as a means because other doors had been closed. But they had to go through all of this kind of stuff. Blew me away. And then the thing that got me the most was when Ronald Reagan started, you could see the effects of his policies on Central America. I just said I would not be a part of anything like that, so I decided to turn my back on the military. I requested a discharge and was willing to accept a dishonorable. They gave me other than, but I was ready for a dishonorable. So I could hang it on my wall. So everybody who ever knew that Eddie Marcus was in the military decided that he would not be a part of systems that would cause the kind of trouble whether it was national or international, by people who professed to be commander-in-chief of me. That wasn't happening. So I took the other than honorable and came back to Mississippi, and here I am in Minnesota. You know what I thought, ladies and gentlemen? I finally learned the lesson. I thought that everybody in the country wanted to live in peace. I thought that everybody in the country wanted prosperity, and they wanted to live in joy. They wanted to make sure that they had no problems when it came to their food, their clothing, their shelter, their education, their health care. I thought they were just streaming for this. They prayed for it every night. I really did. This is what I see. This is what I saw. And so I wanted to tell them that the Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, wants this for you, has made this for you, has prepared this for you. And the only reason you don't have it is because you have rejected it. You might have 1,000 reasons for rejecting it, but in order to have it, it was in your hands. Ooh, that message I was so happy. And I knew that if I came outside into the world and spoke this, many of them would hear me and be glad, but maybe wouldn't be able to support it for one reason or another, but they'd be thrilled. That's what I thought about the world. But when it came down to the church, I just knew the church would be so excited, because these are the people who call themselves the children of God. These are the people who have faith. These are the people that says, greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. These are the people who say, because by our actions we are called peculiar people. Oh, God is love, and by God living in me, I can be nothing but love. I just thought the church would just rain down their support. But I found out the church and the regular population was blind to this, because the training, the brainwashing, the mind control that had been delivered since our birth, not just theirs, but all of our births who live in America today and anywhere in the world, it had brought us to this point that we were blind. We had scales of our eyes, and we could not accept anything outside of what we had been taught. And even though we wanted it, we were afraid, because of what we would be considered as, what we would be perceived as. Even today in America, you stand up and say something against the government, they call you anti-American, that you are not a patriot. All these kinds of stupid things, and people fall for that. But I thought, and then when I walked out, I said, wait a minute, maybe I could do something. I ran for mayor. My platforms were those things I just mentioned to you in St. Paul. I didn't get enough support to even mention. I ran for governor, state of Minnesota, using the same things that I've mentioned to you as a platform. You think I got any support? Now this is the church and the community. What is it about what I mentioned that they didn't want? Or was it me they didn't want? And were they willing to sacrifice their dreams and their prayers because of me? So I thought that wasn't enough, so I ran for United States Senator from the state of Minnesota with this as the same platform. Then I ran for president 2 or 3 times using this as platforms. You never heard of me, have you? No, you never heard of me. The fact that I was talking about these kinds of things, if you had heard them in your mind, you'd say, well, I would have been for it. But if you've been back there, you've been just like everybody else. The truth be known, you would have paid no attention to me. Now, I know why you didn't pay attention to me. I know the part of the brainwashing that affected you. You look at people who have money as those who have real possibilities. That a broke man can't do nothing. You know, being broke, you can't do anything. And so you see a broke man out there talking trash, that to you, that's exactly what he's talking trash, because he can't do nothing. Why? Because you move mountains with money in your mind. With no money, the mountain choke you. And so that's the way I see myself as being perceived. But let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with the vision. There's nothing wrong with the dream. There was nothing wrong with the love that wanted to be expressed towards you. To make a long story short, in my efforts, I didn't just try to be political. When that failed, I committed crimes against the state. To go to court, just to go to court, that when my defense is offered, what would my defense be? The love of the Spirit. that's trying to get your attention for which has been ignored. Go to court, nobody even shows up. I use my defense, the judge shut me off and tell me that won't be a defense. Now I knew going in that the only way I could win is if you, the people, heard this and you demanded change. If you didn't do that, I'd be going to prison, going to jail or prison, whatever the sentence would be. You weren't there, so they put it over my head. Gave me some time and put me on probation. I stood on probation for 9 years, washing dishes at Bethel College. They call it Bethel University now. Still running for president when the 4 years had passed for the other. People out there making slave wages come to me. Eddie, what are we going to do? This is not enough. And I decided to commit another crime. Maybe this time you'll come. That didn't work. So I decided while I entered in as a write-in candidate for president, George Bush, we all know how George Bush got in. And I wrote him a letter and told him I knew and told him he was not going to be victorious. Anyway, the government got hold of that, found out I was on paper. I got violated, sent to prison. All because God loves you. And you still couldn't hear, but God didn't give up on you. I was released from prison September 11, 2001, when whatever that game was played in New York was being played. To make a long story short, ladies and gentlemen, right now, in your presidential, I'm going to go there because this is very important. In this presidential race, you have Miss Clinton running for president of the United States as a Democrat. This is not a surprise. This is a plan. Miss Clinton has worked in the system, for the system, all of her professional life with an intent on reaching this level of power, and it was promised to her if she met the mold. Donald Trump was running around him, flipping his lip, talking trash. Never, ever seriously considered being president. But he talked trash, and the news media was right there. They were instructed to be right there to see how much trash he was going to talk and how the people felt about it. Because the system, the people who really run and perpetuate all this evil within the system, they are just looking for puppets that will do exactly. That's why you only got two parties. Nobody's slipping in here who might have some concerns for you. Nope. It's about people who will submit to the powers that be. And so, and why do I know this? While you might have thought the message that I was bringing about this love was crazy, ignorant, and stupid, the powers that be did not. Oh yeah, they reached out to me. They reached out to me. They would have given me the same chance that they gave Donald Trump. Miss Clinton works her way up there. Donald Trump was an insider and is an insider, but his mouth got him where he is. Now, why would they want me? Because in controlling the world, one of the things that's most essential and necessary is the people's faith. The people's, and everybody knows, the powers that be know. You know that you want your dreams met. Everybody knows that. But I was the specific special target that could get that message to you with the right backing. See, what I've shared with you is actually real. You want it so bad you don't know what to do. But I'm a poor man. Had I agreed to go along with that, they would have put all the money behind me that was needed. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to get this message to you. And with that kind of money behind me, you would have made the way you jumped at Barack Obama look like you were just secondhand stuff, the way you would have jumped at me, because the message is genuine. Now I got all this money behind me. I must be all right. White folks are behind me. And that's the way you would have perceived it. That's the way you would have seen it. And you would have been ready to bite the bullet. But in order for that to happen, I would have had to be submissive to the powers that be. All of this stuff I'm telling you got to be a game that they have set up because they want it. They'll use this in a minute just to get you. And once they get you where they want you, then the real cover comes out. That's when you become everything you don't want to be. Well, you say, how did I know You know, they are very smart people. I was sitting at my computer studying, and all of a sudden a flash came across. I remember it was in orange. It just came straight across my screen. It just came across over some other stuff that came out of the background. It came through there, hit me dead in the face. And you know what? It was a subliminal message. Well, it was meant to have a subliminal effect, but it was a real message. And it said this. This is what it said. It said, Jesus Christ is a black man. Now, that was supposed to get my attention. Sitting right there in my face. They know, you know what I've done and how I do it and how long and what it means to me. But just to make sure that I got the message that who I was being spoken to, they said, and he smokes weed. Man of God, Jesus Christ, black, smoking weed. That hit me dead in the face because I knew they were talking just about me. They could have been talking about some other black man who talk about God a lot who smoke weed. But I know for a fact what I'm out there doing. And I try my best to be as much like that story of Jesus as a kid. When I was a kid, you know, I saw Jesus as this great figure. Love people. I wanted to be like that. And so I saw then immediately, I said, this is Jag. They took Jesus Christ up on a mountain, said, I'll give you all of this. Now they were telling me I could have this. And I'm thinking, if only reason I want it, the only reason I can really have it is if the people want it. And if the people want it, the people got to reach out and cause it to happen. And by causing it to happen, it would be theirs. It would be theirs infused with that spirit that I'm telling you about, going into them, and they become love themselves. That's real. That stuff behind the curtain is not real, so they ignored me, and that was fine because I sure ignored them. And I'm just telling you that to say, it's that easy. You don't matter if you don't think you matter. And as long as you're brainwashed and controlled, that's exactly what you are. Now, the whole point of this is to tell you what I've always been willing to tell you about freedom. When you see, I know you're afraid of God because you see people going to church all the time and you don't want to be anything like that because as far as you're concerned, in your own mind, they are nothing. The only ones who think they're something is that little congregation who goes to church. They think that they're something because they are a group. And they all want to stroke themselves and one another. But in the big scope of things, they're just like the world. They just got it walking down a different path. People in the world walking around different paths, but every path maintain the system. But if to accept the spirit, to recognize who man is and what man is. As long as man is against peace and prosperity and joy, the man is for what? Crime and violence and war and terrorism and all that other stuff. So, with this truth comes freedom, this new life. And so you don't worry about that. I wanted to just say that to you, that it's not what you see in church. Those people don't represent God. They just represent people who say they believe. And I heard a woman say, your belief is nothing without the right result. And what is the result? When no one is complaining. Well, so when I talk to you about God or freedom, I'm talking about that kind that separates you from that. I'm talking about that kind that you recognize that you came into this world, and as far as you know, you had no input in it whatsoever, except one day you showed up here. And you are not afraid of dying because you know it's all right. One time in this world you weren't. Then you were. And then you're not. All of it is all right. In your heart, in your spirit, that's what you feel. So you're not worried about that other stuff. As long as you're worried about somebody, what they're going to say about you, if you're going to lose a job, you should be on throw that job away already. And been working for the Lord by living the right way. Needing a home, a house, food, clothing, shelter, but not getting it that way. Standing up for what's right is supposed to be free. God gave it to you free. And how is this going to be done for those of you who are questioning it? Everybody got a job. Everybody got a job. Not just any job, but a job of their own choosing. So they do something they love, and everything that they do plays a role, a part in the creation of the goods and services that you, the people, say you need, want, or desire. And God made it that way, and you said okay, and you became the hands and feet and mouth and everybody else and everything else that created it. Gotta go now. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Whoa.